In 1789, France was one of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe. It had a grand court, a long military tradition, and a monarchy that claimed deep historical authority. But beneath the surface, the country was under extreme pressure. The French Revolution did not begin as a simple demand to remove a king. It began as a crisis of money, privilege, representation, hunger, and trust. Within 10 years, France would move from absolute monarchy to constitutional experiments, from republic to terror, and finally to military rule under Napoleon Bonaparte. The revolution transformed not only France, but the political language of the modern world. Ideas like citizenship, rights, equality before the law, and popular sovereignty became central to politics in a way they had never been before. Before the revolution, French society was officially divided into 3 estates. The first estate was the clergy, the second estate was the nobility, and the third estate included everyone else: merchants, lawyers, urban workers, and the vast majority of peasants. This structure was not just symbolic. It shaped taxation, status, and power. Many nobles and church institutions enjoyed privileges that ordinary people did not. At the same time, the state was drowning in debt, partly because of wars and the cost of maintaining royal government. Attempts to reform the tax system repeatedly ran into resistance from privileged groups. So the burden of crisis fell most heavily on those with the least political power. By the late 1780s, economic distress made the political crisis explosive. Bad harvests contributed to rising bread prices, and bread was not a luxury item. For ordinary families, it was a basic necessity, often the center of daily survival. When prices rose, anger rose with them. Meanwhile, the monarchy seemed unable to solve the financial emergency. King Louis XVI was not the all-powerful figure royal imagery suggested. He faced a state that needed new revenue, elites unwilling to surrender privilege, and a public increasingly willing to criticize royal authority. In desperation, the king summoned the Estates General in May 1789. It was the first time that body had met since 1614, and its return signaled that the monarchy could no longer govern by routine methods. The Estates General was meant to advise the king and help resolve the crisis, but it quickly became a battle over who represented the nation. Traditionally, each estate voted as a separate order, meaning the clergy and nobility could outvote the third estate 2-1. The representatives of the third estate rejected this arrangement. They argued that they represented the overwhelming majority of the French people and should not be trapped inside an old voting system designed to protect privilege. In June 1789, they broke away and declared themselves the National Assembly. This was a revolutionary act because it claimed that legitimate political authority came not from royal permission, but from the nation itself. The conflict escalated in Paris. Rumors spread that the king might use troops to crush the new assembly. Fear mixed with hunger and political excitement. On July 14, 1789, crowds stormed the Bastille, a fortress prison that had become a symbol of arbitrary royal power. Militarily, the Bastille was not the center of the French state. Politically, its fall was enormous. It showed that popular action in the streets could change the course of national events. The storming of the Bastille became a defining revolutionary moment because it fused constitutional politics with mass uprising. From this point forward, the revolution would not be controlled only by deputies in meeting halls. It would also be pushed by crowds, militias, and local movements. After the summer of 1789, the National Assembly moved rapidly to dismantle the foundations of the old regime. In August, it abolished feudal privileges, attacking centuries-old rights and obligations that had weighed especially heavily on peasants. That same month, it issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. The declaration stated that men were born and remained free and equal in rights, and that sovereignty rested in the nation. These were radical claims in a Europe still dominated by monarchies and inherited status. The Assembly also brought the Catholic Church in France under state control, a move that deeply divided the country. The revolution was becoming not just a political reform movement, but a full reordering of society. The monarchy still existed, but it was increasingly trapped between revolution and reaction. Louis XVI accepted some changes, but many revolutionaries doubted his sincerity. Their suspicions deepened in June 1791, when the king and his family attempted to flee Paris and reach safety near the frontier. They were caught at Varennes and brought back. The failed flight was disastrous for royal credibility. To many people, it seemed to prove that the king was not a partner in reform, but an enemy waiting for the right moment to reverse it. Even those who had hoped for a constitutional monarchy now had to confront a difficult question: could a revolution based on national sovereignty survive with a king who did not truly support it? In 1792, the revolution entered an even more dangerous phase. France went to war against European powers that feared revolutionary ideas and supported the old order. The French Revolutionary Wars put enormous pressure on the new political system. Early military defeats fed paranoia inside France. Revolutionaries worried that enemies abroad were working with traitors at home, and the king's earlier attempt to flee made those fears more believable. On August 10, 1792, an insurrection in Paris overthrew the monarchy in practice. In September, France was declared a republic. This was a turning point of immense importance. The revolution had moved from limiting royal power to abolishing it entirely. Once the republic was established, the fate of Louis XVI became a defining issue. Could a republic allow a former king to live, especially one seen as a symbol of counter-revolution? The National Convention tried him, found him guilty, and in January 1793, Louis XVI was executed by guillotine. His death shocked Europe and hardened the conflict between revolutionary France and monarchies abroad. Inside France, it also intensified political divisions. Some saw the execution as necessary justice and a final break with tyranny. Others saw it as a step into dangerous radicalism. The revolution was now at war externally, divided internally, and increasingly willing to use extraordinary measures in the name of survival. By mid-1793, France faced military threats, rebellion in some regions, economic crisis, and bitter political conflict in Paris. After another revolt in June, power shifted toward the radical Jacobins and the Committee of Public Safety, dominated by figures such as Maximilien Robespierre. The government suspended normal constitutional rule, arguing that emergency conditions required emergency power. The committee organized war efforts, centralized authority, and used revolutionary courts to punish suspected enemies. This period became known as the Reign of Terror. Around 16,000 people were sentenced by the Revolutionary Tribunal and executed. The terror was justified by its supporters as defense of the Republic, but it also revealed how ideals of liberty could be overtaken by fear, suspicion, and coercion. Robespierre and his allies believed that virtue and terror could work together to protect the revolution. But this logic created a dangerous political atmosphere. If disagreement could be treated as treason, then no one was truly safe. Revolutionary leaders who had once attacked the monarchy began turning on one another. The more the terror expanded, the more its architects became vulnerable to the same machinery they had used against others. In July 1794, during the Thermidorian reaction, Robespierre was overthrown and executed. The fall of Robespierre ended the most intense phase of the terror, but it did not solve the underlying problem. France still needed a stable government after years of upheaval. In 1795, the Directory replaced the Committee of Public Safety as France's governing system. It was designed to avoid both monarchy and radical dictatorship, but it struggled from the start. The Directory faced economic problems, political opposition from both royalists and radicals, and continued dependence on the army. Its leaders wanted stability, but they lacked broad legitimacy. As military victories became more important to the Republic's survival, successful generals gained influence. Among them, Napoleon Bonaparte stood out. In November 1799, the coup of 18 Brumaire overthrew the Directory and established the consulate, with Napoleon as first consul. This event is commonly treated as the end of the French Revolution. The revolution destroyed the old monarchy and spread powerful new ideas, but it ended with authority concentrated in the hands of a military leader. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.